If the playoffs started today for MLB, you can see here the Mariners would be taking the 5th seed, which again is the seed that I want the least, and they'd be playing the Blue Jays. Now, depending on what seed they take, and we've gone over this a little bit, will depend on their path through the playoffs. But it also truly and very, very much affects how they're going to be able to set up their playoff rotation in October. As you can see here, the Mariners are a half game behind Toronto. At the time of recording this video, they do have a game against the Padres in about 2 hours, so of course this could change again. And Toronto and Tampa Bay actually are playing each other right now. At the time of recording, I think they still have like 2 games left in their current series of the 5-game series they're in. And the Mariners also have a 5-game lead on Baltimore, but because the Mariners own the season series against Baltimore, it's actually a 6-game lead because the Mariners would take the tiebreaker. I know, I just talked about a lot of different things right there, but let's break it down. So the wild card round is a best of 3 series. Now, what that means basically is the first 2 of 3 wins that either team gets, they move on. You guys understand that, I understand that, but it depends on who they play. The Mariners are going to have to change their rotation around. As it stands right now, Luis Castillo would for sure pitch the first game of the series. No matter who we're playing, Luis Castillo would be on the mound for that first game of the playoffs, the first playoffs for the Mariners in 20+ years. And the second game, well, more than likely, the second game would be pitched by Robbie Ray. That'd be the case if the Mariners face the Rays. That'd be the case if the Mariners face the Orioles. That'd be the case if the Mariners face the Guardians. However, as it stands right now, the Mariners will be in Toronto facing the Blue Jays. And Robbie Ray, at last look, is not vaccinated against COVID-19. Now, we're not going to get political or anything going on here. We're just going to talk about the facts. And as a player that isn't vaccinated against COVID-19, Robbie Ray would not be able to travel to Canada. Meaning that in that best of 3 series, the Mariners would likely go Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, and obviously, I don't think that Marco Gonzalez would be taking the mound at all. Earlier in the season, the Mariners had a series against the Blue Jays in Toronto, and Drew Steckenrider as well as Robbie Ray both did not go to Toronto to face the Blue Jays. Because both were unvaccinated, they couldn't travel to Canada. Now, that doesn't mean that they haven't been vaccinated since. Players like Whit Merrifield and Andrew Benintendi have all gotten vaccinated once they realized they were going to be in a postseason push and had a chance to go to Canada. Whit Merrifield actually got traded to the Blue Jays and was basically said that he was vaccinated at that very point. Whether or not Robbie Ray gets vaccinated doesn't really matter to me, but with that being said, the Mariners are actually set up to handle something like this if he is not and cannot go to Canada. Because the Mariners have such a good starting 4 of the rotation, losing Robbie Ray for a game isn't that big of a deal, and honestly, I think I would rather have righties pitching. The Blue Jays are a pretty right-handed heavy team with Bichette, Chapman, Springer, Vladdy, and the list just goes on and on for this team against right-handed pitchers. Probably a better chance of taking down the other team if you throw a righty against them than throwing a lefty in Ray. Ray's also been subject to a lot of big innings against some teams, and while I love Robbie Ray and I think he's been a great pitcher for the Mariners, I don't know if I would want him against a right-handed heavy lineup. In a 3-game series, I think it'd be safe to say that Kevin Gausman and Luis Castillo would be facing off in the first game, and then Alek Manoah and either George Kirby or Logan Gilbert. I honestly think I would rather start Kirby, but both of them are totally fine options. At this point, if you were to win the series, then you could start Robbie Ray in the first game of the 5-game series, the ALDS against the Astros. Again, still a scary lineup with a lot of right-handed bats, but at least Robbie Ray would be able to pitch there. For any other scenario for the Mariners, I would assume the rotation would go Luis Castillo, Robbie Ray, and then George Kirby or Logan Gilbert. I think the 2 are interchangeable in this situation. Both have been really, really good. I think Kirby I would give the slight edge to, but of course he also is a rookie coming up on an innings limit in 2022. Going into the playoffs, I think the Mariners are going to go full bore with him and just hope for the best because they're going to need George Kirby down the stretch if they have him. Of course, against lineups like the Astros and the Yankees, a right-handed pitcher might fare a little bit better than a left-handed pitcher, but in the end, Robbie Ray is still one of our big game pitchers. We signed him for a reason, and I think that Robbie Ray has to take up that number 2 spot to break up the righties. If you are in need of a lefty at some point during the series, you could always go to Marco Gonzalez or Matthew Boyd out of the bullpen. I'm assuming that Gonzalez is going to be pitching out of the bullpen at this point, along with Chris Flexen and Matthew Boyd. Based on Robbie Ray's splits here, you can see he's a lot better against lefties, holding them to a 213, 256, 402 line, whereas against righties, he's holding them to a 227, 302, 412 line. Robbie Ray's also been way better at home than he has been on the road. At home, he has a 197, 253, 354 line, and away, he has a 263, 346, 486 line. So I think that it might be safe to say that if they have to go face somebody like the Blue Jays, I'm okay with them not being able to use Robbie Ray. Interestingly enough, when we look at George Kirby's season, he's actually been bad against right-handed pitchers. He has a 321, 353, 498 slash line against righties. Against lefties, he has a 201, 226, 284. He's also been better away than he has been at home, which I think is super strange because he's only given up 21 earned runs at home, but away he's only given up 16. And finally, looking at Logan Gilbert, and yeah, he's actually also been worse against righties, giving up a 279, 326, 458 slash line compared to a 201, 266, 302. He's also been worse at home compared to he has away at 266, 302, 397 compared to a 228, 297, 384. And again, how other teams would face a lefty versus a righty, I mean, we'll probably never be able to really look at those stats and compare how a pitcher faces lefties and righties compared to how a hitter faces lefties and righties. It would take a lot of different number crunching, and I'm just really not smart enough to do that. The Mariners rotation, however, is 100% built for the playoffs. I think that with this rotation, even if you do have to miss Robbie Ray in the Toronto series, it's really no big deal. You go 3 righties. You go Castillo, Gilbert, and Kirby, and then you have Robbie Ray to pitch against the Astros in the first game of that series. At that point, after that game, you probably have Luis Castillo rested, and you start over Castillo, Kirby, Gilbert. Either way, I think the Mariners are in a really good spot to do some damage in the playoffs, and I know a lot of teams don't want to face them because their pitching is so damn good, and in the playoffs, your starting pitching doesn't even really matter because they can only go a couple innings if you want, and then you could throw the bullpen out there for the rest of the game, and we all know how good the Mariners bullpen has been. Whatever seed the Mariners do end up taking in the wild card race, it is going to change the way they use their pitching rotation at the start of the playoffs. I'm interested to hear in the comments down below which one you guys want to see. How would you like to see the playoff rotation work out? And if you want to learn a little bit more about Logan Gilbert and what makes him so special, go ahead and check out this video on the screen now. I appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.